Microphone test. 1, 2, 3.
Mayor, check yours. Mayor.
Testing, testing. Nothing. We have no microphone.
Check, check, 1, 2.
We're good. Ready to go? Okay.
Thanks, John.
Jackie, are you ready? Okay. We'd like to welcome everyone to our City Council meeting this evening, November 8th. 9th, isn't it? 8th, excuse me. Yeah. November 8th. We appreciate everyone being in attendance tonight, and thank you for coming out. We'd like to begin with a invocation by Chris Berbert, if you'd like to come forward. Here, isn't he? Yes. Oh, are you? Okay, yeah. Sorry, Chris. You're exactly right.
Either or if you want me to.
You're very versatile, is what you're saying. All right, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. Sorry.
Will the audience please rise? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Chris. We'd like to recognize all the members of the City Council here and our staff, and appreciate them, and recognize those who have run for political office, and appreciate those who've devoted their time to that process. Thank you. Is there any conflict of interest on any of the items among the City Council that we need to disclose? Seeing none, we'll make that note. Any recognitions anyone would like to make today? If I may, I'd just like to take a moment and express appreciation to Harriman High School. We had our Hope Walk, which recognized the need for more attention and concern about teen suicide. And so we had a wonderful walk Saturday from Harriman High School to the town center, and we hope that that brought more recognition to this unfortunate tragedy that even affects us. I think there's been 2 high schoolers this last year who've tragically gone that route, and we certainly pray for them and their family and hope that we can be an instrument in preventing that. I wanted just to also mention that our Unified Police Citizen Academy Active Shooter event was out at Fort Harriman Middle School last Thursday, and so if you heard some shooting, that's what they were doing. They were trying to replicate a real-life scenario where an active shooter could be there, and so we appreciate them coming out into our community. And then lastly, I just wanted to recognize our senior social was today. I don't know of any other cities who have that, and recognize our staff, our event staff, who did a wonderful job in providing a meal for the elderly who are living in our community, and I've always made a note to honor them and appreciate them for the work that they have done and helping to build our community. Okay, anyone else? Okay, we'd like to go now into our public comment portion of our meeting, and what we'd like to do with everyone's participation would be to have our public comment at this portion of our meeting on items other than the Adeline project. And then we will have a public comment portion just prior to item 6.3. That way your comments are fresh on our mind and can address the concerns that you have. So at this time, let me just read. Audience members may bring any item to the mayor and council attention. Comments will be limited to 2 minutes. State law prohibits the council from acting on items that do not appear on the agenda. So that being said, I have one item here, I think I'll go through, that Sherry Orn, if she'd like to come forward. I think her item is not Adeline related, so.
Thank you. I'm Sherry Orn. I just wanted to address the council. I spoke with the mayor a week ago this last Monday in regards to the walking path that's on McQuiston. I appreciate the city taking action to get a walking path on there. However, it's still not a safe walking path. Cars are driving on it because it's not marked, or there's no notice or any markings on it that would indicate that cars cannot drive on it. So there are several instances of cars driving on that walking path, and I'd like something done about that sooner rather than later before somebody gets hit or killed on there. One of the residents who lives on the corner, just in a couple of days, she put her trail cam up and had 28 different instances of cars driving on that. So it no longer is a safe walking path. It's just a smooth paved part for people to drive on now. So I'm just asking the staff if you can help push staff along on that to make that more of a priority, just simply to get it, to have some sort of indication. Chief Carr's team can't come out and issue a citation if you're driving on it, because right now it's just paved asphalt, just a paved road. So we just need some notification on there. Some paint it, put some pedestrian only, something like that on it. I know there's issues with jury barriers and things like that, but let's get something even temporary on there, some paint that says it needs to be restricted. Thanks.
Thank you, Sherry. Blake, could you step out and visit with Sherry for just maybe give her an update as to where we're at on that? I know we've been talking about that, and we did bring it to staff's attention, but maybe it would be well just to, would that be okay? Thank you, Blake. Okay, are there any others who have non-Adeline issues you'd like to bring to our attention tonight? I've got a number of comment forms, but I'm assuming they're all Adeline related, but you're certainly welcome to come. Okay, seeing none, I will close this portion of our public comment portion of our meeting and go into any city council board and committee assignments. If you'd like to make a report, are there any?
Pam Roberts is here.
Speak in your microphone there, buddy.
Pam Roberts is here from the there she is, from the Wasatch Front Waste Recycling Board. She will be talking about the potential fee increase.
Anything else? Okay, we'll go to item 4, reports, presentation, and appointments. The first item is 4.1, introduction of the 2017-18 Miss Harriman Royalty. Sarah Pettit, is she? You're Sarah Pettit?
I'm Sarah
Okay.
Pettit.
All right,
I
Sarah.
wish I was this pretty as Sarah Pettit.
Okay.
Sarah unfortunately cannot be here tonight, and so I am thrilled to be in her place this evening to present to you our outgoing Miss Harriman, Mackenzie Jensen. She has served us for the last year very well, and she's been a fantastic representative for our community. And Mackenzie will come up and say a few words, tell you about her experience as Miss Harriman, and she will introduce our new Miss Harriman, Abigail Chapman. I also want to recognize and thank our pageant committee. They did an outstanding job with the pageant this year, as they do every year. It's a great volunteer committee, and Sarah does a wonderful job. So I'll turn the time over to Mackenzie.
Good evening. It's never easy coming up here. But being Miss Harriman has been an amazing opportunity. My service platform for the last year has been anti-bullying. Don't let it stick. And I based it off of the book You Are Special. I picked this platform because I was a victim of bullying back in elementary school, a little bit into my middle school experience, and I didn't want kids to feel the way that I did back then. Because of this amazing opportunity and this platform that I picked, I had the amazing opportunity to go to multiple schools within our community. I had Harriman Elementary make a pledge to not let it stick, to make sure that they were not bringing others down within their school and making sure that they were building each other up and knowing that they are individually special. Also with this platform, I've had remarkable experiences that are going to carry with me for the rest of my life. For example, I was able to go read the book You Are Special by Max Lucado to Harriman Elementary, and this little boy, after reading it and having my spiel about it, comes up to me and goes, "I'm being bullied. Sorry. What do I do?" And I was able to tell him a little bit more about my experience and encourage him to tell his parents and to tell his teacher, and that he was extremely brave, and I was proud of him to come to me and say that. That was the first step, and we talked a little bit back and forth, and to watch him leave that day just a little bit stronger and a little bit more brave, and I was able to portray my love to him and say that you are special and don't let anyone else bring you down with that. A second experience was with Fort Harriman Middle School. I had the opportunity to go speak to the theater department within each of those classes, and this boy came up to me and gave me the biggest hug, and he said, "Thank you. I needed this. My dad committed suicide 2 years ago, And I've been on the same path as him. And I've been bullied and I haven't known what to do, but sorry. You've changed my life. This is what the Ms. Harriman and Miss America organization is all about. It's not the crown that sits on your head or the sash that you hangs over your shoulder. It's far more than that. It's there to do service. It's there to not only affect lives within your community, but it affects you as an individual. I am not the same. I've been within this program for 2 years now, and I am not the same girl that stands here before you today that began 2 years ago. And I am not the same girl from a year ago when I was crowned. This organization has changed my life. And I am extremely honored and humble to have represented this amazing city and to call this my home. Harriman City will forever and always be my home. I want to thank the Ms. Harriman organization for providing this amazing opportunity, and I want to thank the council for being so supportive and believing within the organization as well. It really does change lives. It's forming young women to be remarkable, outstanding women in real life situations. And so I thank you for that, and I want to thank my director for always believing in me and my family as well, for the constant support that they had. I am excited to announce the new Ms. Harriman, Abby Chapman. She is an outstanding young woman and is going to have a roller coaster of emotions set before her, and I want her to hold on to that and enjoy the ride, because it's a great one. So please welcome your new Ms. Harriman, Abby Chapman.
As you can tell, I have huge shoes to fill, but I am so excited to take on the opportunity. So I'd like to first thank Mackenzie for her year of service, because she's a phenomenal young woman, as you guys all know, and I am so excited to take on this next opportunity. I would just like to thank first the City Council for supporting the Ms. Harriman organization, because without you, I couldn't do this, and I wouldn't have this opportunity to grow and change like Mackenzie has stated. And I'd like to thank you for your continued support in the Arts Council as well, and allowing this opportunity to happen. So just for a little bit, I'd like to talk about my platform and my dreams for the future of Ms. Harriman. So my platform is You Have a Voice, and it's all about encouraging citizens to become politically engaged and involved in public service, which is fitting because here we are at a City Council meeting today. And it was really based off of what Corley Moser and Mayor Freeman have done for me in the last 2 years. As I served on the City Youth Council, I realized the impact that I could have on my community, and I realized that becoming involved in local government was really the start of where you could change your world. And I wanted to share that passion with everyone of all ages and encourage them to become engaged in the process as well. This morning, I had the opportunity to talk to some 7th graders at Fort Harriman Middle School. And today we talked about the voting process in the federal government as well as our state government. And we actually wrote letters to the mayor, which I left in my car. But there are letters for you from a bunch of 7th graders talking about what they care about, and they now realize that they have an impact and that they have a voice. And throughout my year of service, I plan on attending different middle school classes as well as elementary school classes and teaching them the importance of their voice and how important it is to get out and vote, even if they are not old enough yet, and to encourage their parents to vote as well. I'm so excited to serve the city this year. I had a wonderful time at the senior social today, and it was so fun singing to them and sharing my talent with them and sharing my passions with them. And I'd just like to thank you again for this opportunity, and I cannot wait for this year of service. Thank you.
We'd like a photo op, if that's acceptable to the council.
You bet.
To take some pictures.
You bet.
Be here.
Yeah. Okay. 1, 2, 3, and just keep smiling. We'll just take a whole bunch, and that way at least one will have nobody's eyes closed. Get some?
One more. Thank you.
We have some amazing youth in our community. I'm very grateful for them. Before we get too far, I wanted to take a minute and thank the parents. We got two of them here, two mothers, and just very grateful for you and the contribution that you have made to their success. And so thank you. You kind of stand on the sidelines, but you're certainly an integral part in their success. And thank you so much for what you do, and it's such a blessing to these young ladies. So, Abby, I was going to ask you not Abby, but Kinsey, what's your plans? What are you going to be doing?
I'm currently going to school and working on my career. I love kids and I love because of my 5th grade teacher, Miss Tanner, in elementary. I want to be a 5th grade teacher, and I love and nurture kids.
Well, great. We wish you much success. Item 4.2 is introduction of the Healthy Harriman Chair. Mindy?
I know. So we're really excited to introduce Adonia Swanner to you. As you all know, Cammie Greenhagen-Jones stepped down this summer, and thankfully through connections with, I don't know what side you're on, come up here. Thankfully, with our connections with Salt Lake County Healthy Communities and the Intermountain Riverton Hospital Community Advisory Board, we were able to be presented with her name. We met with her a couple months ago and are really excited to have her on board. She has been a resident of Harriman for 4 years and is a master herbalist and licensed massage therapist. And her passion for health and wellness and volunteerism is just evident when you talk to her. She's very passionate about health and healthy communities. We're excited to have her, especially as we start planning for Pedalpalooza for 2018. So I'll have her say a few words.
I just have to say, I'm still crying from you talking. I've been trying to get myself together. Okay. I've been crying ever since. So I'm gonna just take 2 seconds to calm myself down. I've had incidences in my past, and the thing is we do need to work together. Health is a big issue, and abuse is a big issue when it comes to health. And I hope that we can all work together to solve that problem. Anyway, on to Pedalpalooza. That's coming up on the 19th, and the team that was with Healthy Harriman before has kind of fizzled out because Cammie has been super busy doing other things, and we're really excited because we've already got a team of 6 to help us with Pedalpalooza, and they're mostly Harriman residents, and they're super excited about getting it together, and other ideas have come in about what we can do to get our community involved. I wasn't planning on talking about that, but anyway, that's what I have.
What date did you say the Pedalpalooza was, or has it been given a date?
It's May 19th.
May 19th. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, welcome. It's good to have you here, and you're in very good company, and we have good people that'll give you direction and such. So we're very happy for you to come and volunteer. We don't spend a lot of time talking about how important volunteers are to our community. There are so many, hundreds, who come with willing hearts and helping hands to help carry forward our community, and we're just very grateful for that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Look forward to working with you. Okay, we'll go to item 5, our consent agenda. It's the approval of the August 23rd, September 13th, October 11th minutes, as well as an approval of a resolution approving interlocal cooperative agreement with Utah Department of Transit, UDOT, for the Providence Hall traffic study.
I'll motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on those items? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. Jared?
Yes.
Corley?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. That motion carries. We'll now go into item 6.1, discussion consideration of a text change to the land use ordinance to adopt a chapter regarding planned development overlay zones. Bryn?
There we go. We got it. Except my clickers works. Gordon, can you click that for me? It's not. All right. This is the text change to adopt the planned development overlay zone. We have been working on this for several months. This is a new chapter in our ordinance that changes a PUD from a conditional use to an overlay zone, which becomes a legislative item. So the process will be somewhat similar as it is now. Currently they submit a preliminary bubble type plan, and the Planning Commission approves that. This will be similar in that it will be, again, still a site plan attached. It goes to the Planning Commission, and then that is a recommendation that then comes to the City Council. Again, because it's a zoning item, it's a legislative item, the council has to act on that. So this is the new zone. We have talked about it. Again, for the last few months, the Planning Commission just made really only one minor change. I have all the text here. I can go through it again. It lists everything they'll be required to submit as far as the preliminary site plan. How the PUD works is it works with the underlying zone. So if the underlying zone, for example, allows 3 units per acre, the PUD can't increase that density. It just allows them to move the density around and cluster it. So the underlying zone sets the density. Again, this talks about open space requirements. It talks about, architectural. It talks about how the setbacks are determined as part of the plan. And like I said, the 20% open space requirement, which isn't different, that's been the same. It's been consistent all the way through. They still have to show the 20% open space. Once the City Council approved the PUD overlay zone with the preliminary site plan attached, then the final site plans for each pod, as we call them, would come back to the Planning Commission for final details of lot layout and road exact layouts. Again, meeting the criteria as established with the preliminary plan. So the Planning Commission, again, like I said, recommended approval. They made one little change to require minimum lot sizes be shown on the site plan. And that is the only recommendation they made. So again, the Planning Commission recommended approval of this. So this is on for you for tonight for a decision.
I'll mention again the 3 things that I brought up in the work meeting before, just for the public consumption. They are that in the preliminary approval or submission, and this is under preliminary site plan shall show, let's also add in addition to minimum lot sizes, the average lot size per pod, and then we'll give staff some leniency on whether they'd like to specify even a range. If there's a minimum to maximum number of lots, then those average lot sizes per pod could be a range of square footage per lot.
Are you looking for the range to be, again, like a specific number? I mean, the average to still kind of be a range? Because it's going to be difficult, until they lay out the exact lots to know what the precise average would be, so.
Right, and using the example from the last Planning Commission meeting wherein the developer had the option to have a minimum number of lots, let's just say for the sake of argument, 10 lots up to 15 lots in a certain amount of acreage, then they would need to indicate on the preliminary plan what that would mean for their, the size of their lots.
So they'd be 10,000 to 12,000 square foot lots, for example.
Right.
Okay.
That way the public, the purpose for this is so that the public will be able to see, it will be very transparent what the average size of these lots really will be. Because some of us that are familiar with the way the density is calculated know that open space and all of the road widths actually come out of that plan. So when you say it's 3 units per acre, that does not mean third acre lots. So it would just be more transparent to the public to understand what the lot sizes really will be. So that should be submitted with the preliminary approval. Also, we discussed the open space, and I'd like to add some definition. This is on the same section right here under A. Let's see. Yes, open space, it would need to specify, again, we'll give the staff some leniency on the verbiage, that it complies with the minimum requirement as per, and then you can reference the section.
Yeah,
we have a 20% minimum in Harriman. So when they submit that plan, it already needs to show that it's 20%, it's meeting the 20% requirement.
That one.
And I had one other comment, but I need to get to the right place on the map. So this is under J, under preservation of open space, and 1, at least 20%. And then we also need to specify that schools, churches, other institutional uses, however that needs to be phrased, would not count as open space. Certainly commercial will have its own calculation, but the specific to the schools, we don't want the schools included in the calculation of open space.
Yep, got that one. Anybody else have comments?
One thing I wanted to just bring up, Bryn, under 1030-4D, it says the Planning Commission shall hold a public meeting and after due consideration shall approve with conditions, or deny the application. I think we ought to have the option of continuing, assuming they have that option.
Yes, and let me, I added that. Oh, I added it in the other chapter. I added it in the site plan chapter. In the general requirements chapter, kind of like we talked about last time, the chapter 5, where it kind of goes with the general, it does talk about how the Planning Commission can continue to request additional information. And on our next item, the site plan, I just copied that verbiage into that chapter. We could certainly do the same thing here. That
I would like to see that there, because I give the Planning Commission that option if they'd like to do that.
Agreed.
Any other changes or suggestions? Okay, I will look for a motion then on this item. We, just so everyone's here, we talked at this quite length in our previous meeting, so.
And just be clear for public consumption, one of the big differences Bryn had mentioned is that maybe you can just review that again, what the current process is and what it would be going forward with this.
You would just review what the new process will be with this?
Well, the current process versus the new process.
Sure, so the current process is, again, starts out similar. They submit the site plan with the densities and the bubble plan, but it goes to Planning Commission for approval. It's conditional use.
It does not come to
It does not come to the City Council. And because it's a conditional use, we a lot of times will say is really a permitted use with conditions, you know what I mean? So a conditional use is something you typically are going to approve. This makes it an overlay zone. An overlay zone, again, is legislative, which is why it has to come to the council. And because it's a legislative item now and not a conditional use, then the legislative action has different discretion for you to be able to make those decisions. So it's not it just gives you more discretion when you're reviewing the plan. Again, it gives you that second set of eyes. The Planning Commission doesn't make the final decision anymore.
Okay.
Yep, thank you.
Look for a motion.
Is our city attorney comfortable that you can work on the amendments to the language based on the direction given? Yes. All right,
Yes.
Yes. Then I will motion to approve ordinance number 2017-46, authorizing a text change to the land use ordinance to add a chapter regarding planned development overlay zones with the comments noted by council and mayor.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Any further discussion by council? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. Nicole?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Corley?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. That motion carries. Go to item 6.2, discussion and consideration of an ordinance authorizing a text change to the land use ordinance to add a chapter regarding site plans. Bryn?
All right, next. So this chapter, again, regarding site plans, this goes hand in hand with the ordinance you just approved for the new plan development overlay zone. Once you approve a plan development overlay zone on a piece of property with a preliminary site plan, each pod or phase then comes back for a final approval. When they come back, they go through this site plan process. So that's why we're, looking at both of these chapters together. And again, these are both chapters that are part of our larger ordinance update, but we really wanted to do these separate to really give them some good attention. So this outlines that process. So again, each phase as they come back would just go to Planning Commission to make sure that it meets the density and whatever guidelines were approved as part of the preliminary site plan. The Planning Commission did have a hearing and recommend approval of this. They only added one slight change. It just said floodplains before. They wanted to say FEMA floodplains. That was the only change they made. So again, this outlines specifically what they have to submit as part of the site plan, what details need to be submitted. This site plan process would also be used for commercial uses as they came in. If a Olive Garden came in just to review their site plan for their site. It'd be the same process. So again, goes over, everything, layout dimensions of all the lots, the boundary lines, all the information that needs to be submitted on that plan. And this is quite extensive and a lot more than we require now. So this will be a lot of good information. You have to show current surrounding property owners, current infrastructure, proposed infrastructure, landscaping plans, building elevations, any contaminated soils. Again, this goes on and on through everything that has to be required. And then again, this goes to the Planning Commission for approval. So that is the site plan chapter. You did ask for a couple of changes last time, and I will point them out to you. I think you had a redlined copy in your packet. Let me find them here. So you asked me to add, and let me get there. Under 1034, it talks about a site plan shall be processed as in this section, and then we also included the language that it has to meet the generator requirements found in section 10.5, kind of like we talked about last time, those same requirements, just to kind of double up to make sure we get everything that needs to be included. And then also added under section, that's a long section. I guess it's the same section. Under C, what the mayor was referring to is called additional information. As part of the process for any application, the decision-making body may request additional information or materials necessary, to make their decision. So that's kind of that, ability to, again, to continue to ask for additional information. I think those were the only two changes, you had asked for. So those are in the text that you have. Any other questions for me?
Okay, I will ask for a motion for this item. Again, this was discussed prior.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 2017-47, authorizing a text change to the land use ordinance to add a chapter regarding site plans.
I'll second.
Motion a second. Any discussion by council? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. Jared?
Yes.
Corley?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. That motion carries. We'll now go on to 6.3, discussion and consideration of proposed rezone with the anthem, when we're going to have the public comment portion of our meeting on that item.
Want to do your public comments first? Okay.
Yes, if that would be
I
okay.
thought we were going to do presentation.
I say maybe we should do the presentation
Whatever you wanna do.
first.
Okay, yeah, we're fine.
Presentation.
Let me just mention too, for those who might be here for items 6.6, 6.7, 6.8, that's the Danzy development, that has been removed from the agenda. So I should have mentioned that, I apologize, at the beginning of our meeting. So, we'll go ahead, Bryn.
All right, so would you like me to kind of talk about 6.3 and 6.4 together, separately?
Yeah.
Just kind of go through all of it?
Sure.
Okay. So 6.3 is the proposed rezone of the Anthem or Adeline property. It's approximately 275 acres. You can see the location there on your map. Again, we've been talking about this property for several months now. The original application was for R210 and C2. The applicant presented the Planning Commission with an amended zoning application, and the Planning Commission has recommended approval of this. So you can see the C2 at the top, R210 in the center portion there, and then 50 acres of R121 on the southern half, which would be just north of Harriman Parkway, north of Heritage. The R121 would again allow animal rights similar to the agricultural zones, horses and family food production in that area. So that's the zoning application. So like I talked about with the PUD, the underlying zone establishes the density, and then the PUD, allows them to cluster it and put that in different pods. Again, I'll point out this is the newly adopted general plan on this property. Just again to show how it, has the commercial at the top, the lower density at the bottom, and that mid-range kind of there in the middle of the property. So the PUD again looks like. All right, it's taking its time. There we go. PUD again, bubble plan looks like this, and has all the additional information here. I blew it up so you can maybe read it. Open space summary showing their 20%, site summary showing their density, and the breakout of each pod with a kind of a minimum and maximum units in each pod. They also have design guidelines, which we'll go over in just a second, which establishes a range of lot sizes in each of those pods. The Planning Commission spent a couple meetings on this. The application was originally 1,100 units. The Planning Commission recommended approval of 900 units. They felt that was more in compliance with the general plan, the new general plan. That made the density 4 units per acre over the residential. So again, 900 units. The applicant has amended his plan to comply with the Planning Commission's recommendation, and he is showing 900 units on the property. The changes came, again, in pods 5 and a little bit out of pod 6 to make those, some of those were townhomes. Those have all been changed to single family now, so there are no townhomes in the project. So that's, again, the process kind of like we talked about. The rezone and the PUD are both legislative decisions. The Planning Commission had public hearings and has made recommendations on both of these items to you. You have a public meeting and make the final decision. The site plan and the design guidelines and all of that is attached as part of the approval. There's also 23 conditions of approval that the Planning Commission is recommending on the Plan Development Overlay Zone. And then again, the next item on your agenda, the development agreement, which we can talk about in a little bit, that also goes along with this. So the applicant has design guidelines, but I'd probably have him go through that if you want, or I can go through them, or however you'd like to do that. They explain them very well, so if you want, I can pull up their design guidelines and have them explain them.
Who would like to do that? For
go get him here.
Mayor, Council, good evening and thank you. My name is Corey Shoup. I'm with Blue Line Designs. We're landscape architects and planners. And we have been asked to assist on this project in putting these design guidelines together, and we've worked hand in hand with your staff and with your Planning Commission. And as Bryn has mentioned, we have made a number of changes or refined this design guideline document to meet their recommendations. So my goal tonight would be to briefly walk you through this to help the council with any questions you might have, but also help any of the public that are here to see this understand maybe a little better about the project. Obviously, the table of contents, I brought a hard copy here too, because I'll flip through these and make any notes of things that we need to change. But just a quick overview of the project. I think everyone's pretty well familiar with it. It's 275-ish acres located, if you'll go to the next map, located there south of 118 and north of 126 between 6,000 West and 6,400 West. Bryn has just showed you this, and actually you've got this presentation, but also the breakdown. Maybe I'll go through this briefly for the public that are here. Like was mentioned, it's 274 acres. Excluding the commercial, it's 224. Again, the recommendation from Planning Commission was that we not exceed the 900 units. The total open space barely exceeds the 20%, but there's the 20%, which is 44.9, almost 45 acres. Gross density at 3.28 with a net density of 4.02. The breakdown of the land use summary, for those that aren't aware or can't see, and pointers don't really work on the TV, but the lower portion are pods 1 and pods 2. Those are what we refer to as the estates. And we'll go into more detail of what those are envisioned to be later on in the design guidelines. Pods 3 and pods 4 are the meadows, and then pod 5 and pod 6. Pod 5 is the cottage, and then pod 6 is the active senior. Again, the green areas that you see in there represent the areas, and they are relatively close to what we anticipate laying them out as, but that's the 45, we'll call it, acres. Just the objectives, really, as the planners and designers of the project, we looked at the architectural continuity, the trails and linkages, and the open space, and then the grander overall unifying elements within Adeline. Open space, again, it's really too small to see on the screen, but each of the green pods are labeled with a letter rather than a number, and each of the green spaces are numbered between A and R, and you can see the calculation there, and those areas that only qualify for the 25% have also been highlighted. The trail connections, really this slide was meant to help you and the public understand what the trail connections will look like. There are 2 areas within Adeline where we will have public trails that traverse the Midas Creek area, and what you're seeing here in the hand graphics and the image are similar to what you would see in the project. Along the Midas Creek, there are 3 areas where these exercise nodes will be located, and these are similar to other nodes that are found in the Anthem project. And you'll also notice on here there are 2 sets, really 3 sets of trails, but 2 of them are combined together. This is for the public's benefit. On the south side of Midas Creek, there's an 8-foot trail combined with and next to, well, the 8-foot trail is a hard asphalt trail, and it's connected to a soft trail for equestrian use. That's located on the south side, and you can see that it abuts the exercise nodes. On the north side of Midas Creek, the developer has also offered to put in another 8-foot trail for all the residents that will be located on the north side and linking them. And then you can see highlighted there the areas where we anticipate generally locating the 2 bridges. And then the red dots represent other park-like amenities that will be located within that open space. The general guidelines, this gets into how we were trying to unify, and so really basically this slide helps to give clarity to entry monuments, entry features, streetscapes, lighting, fencing, and then the architectural styles of each of the pods. And then we'll dive into those as we go further into the document. This slide represents where we anticipate having entry monuments. There are 6 located around the project, and the entrances will be located, generally speaking, within those circles. This slide, it's a little difficult here to see the difference in the color from the audience's perspective, but along 6,000 West and 6,400 West are blue lines that indicate the large wall that you're seeing here just to the right and also a cross section. And then along 12600 along the south is what you're seeing on the top. What we have proposed here is along 12600 is that we are adding an additional 10 feet on the outside of that pathway, and then also providing a berm to elevate the solid fence that you're seeing there, the Harriman Standard fence. All in an effort to really put on display the landscaping that will happen in that additional 10 feet, and then also to give one more level of privacy to those residents along a busy road. Okay, and then this is where we start to get into more detail of each of the pods. Basically, we just describe here some of the architectural features and some of the landscape features, which we'll get into in the following pods. Okay, so starting on the south, 12600, and working our way to the north, you'll see the estate lots, which are pods 1 and pods 2. These pods contain lots that range in size between a 1/4 acre and larger than a 1/2 acre. And these are the lots that are R121, I think is the number, that allow animal rights and such. These are typical type homes that you'll see on these types of lots. There is a minimum setback for front yards of 20, driveways at 25, side yards at 8 and 10. Corner lots obviously are deeper at 18, rear yards at a minimum of 25. And then at the request of the Planning Commission, we also worked with the decks and covered patios at a minimum of 15. One thing to note here on this plan is that these homes in pods 1 and 2 on these larger lots will be a minimum of 3,600 square feet and will have 3-car garages, so large homes. This is pods 4 and 5. We're working our way north. These lots range in size from 0.1 to 0.25 1/4 acre lots. And this is a breakdown again of the base and then the maximum. So if we go to the next slide, thank you. Again, front yards 15, minimum driveways at 22, side yards at 6, corner lots at 15, and rear lots or rear yards at a minimum of 15, with again we put the 10-foot deck and covered patio in there. And note on these pods as well that these units are a minimum of 2,600 square feet with a 2-car garage. Now we move into pod 5. This is where we had townhomes, and at the recommendation of the Planning Commission, the townhomes were removed. Everything you see in this pod now will be single-family homes. It's about 31 acres. See the green space in there? Thank you. And these are typical type homes, single-family detached homes that you'll see on that property. You'll notice in the setbacks table, we added an alley load in case there are any alley load there. We wanted to bring clarity to that. And so front yards basically 15 minimum, driveways at a minimum 22, except for the alley, and obviously that can't have a 22, so those are lower 3s. Side yards at 3, and then corner lots at 12, and a minimum of 10 foot on the rear yard. And these again will be a minimum square foot of 1,200 square feet and a 2-car garage. Using the Harriman City Standard Road cross sections, you can see we pulled these right from your document, and so you're probably already familiar with those. I think the only one that maybe did not exist at the time was an alley, and so we've added that top one there. But these all meet your standard road cross sections. Yeah, thank you. Then finally on the last, this is the active senior pod, pod 6. It's 42 acres, 42.51 acres in size. And then if you'll bounce to the next slide, this is typical of what you'll see on those. We did switch out one of the images to show a Rambler style. Not all elderly will want a second floor. Sometimes they do want those second floors for resident, in-home resident type help who will live up in there. But generally speaking, they'll all be senior living on the main floor. And then your standard road cross sections that will accompany all of Pod 6. That was pretty quick. I know you're already familiar with it, but I think that is helpful for the public, and they can get an idea of what is being proposed in there. With that, we have a team here, engineers and road engineers, civil
Can you talk
engineers.
about the 50 acres of commercial as well? Is there anybody that can speak to that?
Yeah, we are not addressing the commercial in this piece. It's a separate piece. So that's why you don't see it in the
So the
guidelines.
commercial is part of the rezone. We'll zone the top 50 acres commercial, but it's only the residential is part of the PUD overlay zone.
Correct.
And the design guidelines. When the commercial comes in, we would do separate design for the commercial center separately.
Okay, can you go back to the pod screens for me, starting with pod 1 and 2?
Right there.
Okay, I got a question. So pod 1 and 2, does that conform with the 2014 plan and the 2017 plan?
Let me show you. So this is the 2014 plan. Which again shows some commercial, shows lower density at the bottom, you know, the single family density at the top, and then some, you know, medium density in the corner. The number of units, you know, is well within the same range. I have the.
All right, so let me just
this is
make this a lot more simpler, Bryn. Is the
That's the current
entire
general plan.
residential area that we're talking about, all those pods, does that portion conform with the 2014 and the 2017 general plans?
I think the council has to determine whether it meets the intent of the general plan. I think it certainly follows the same kind of general pattern of development both plans do. They both have some commercial along 118th, you know, lower density at the bottom and in the.
Just the residential area is what I'm talking about.
Just the residential?
Yes.
The number of units does. The number of units overall, you know, and would comply with either plan, I believe. Is that what you're asking?
Yes. So the number of units does coincide with the 2014
The new plan would allow up to, you can see there are 1,100 units. The old plan was 1,090. So they're both basically 1,100 units. And this is 900. So I believe the number of units would fall in line with either plan.
Okay.
The difference is the 10 acres of commercial.
The difference
versus
would be the
50.
commercial, but again, that's up to you to determine whether it meets the intent. Yeah.
One intent's more than just units. That's where the units are. So if you look at the previous map, and this is one of the concerns that I raised in the earlier
Can
meeting.
you go to the other one?
No, the 14, the one that you
Yeah,
just showed.
that's the
Yeah.
14 plan right there.
Nah, looks a lot different to me where those colors are laid out. The low density all the way up to Midas Creek, et cetera. So units is part of it, but I guess that's the legal question at hand that I hope that we'll get to at some point, is that does it meet the intent of both?
Okay.
Anything
Thank you
else?
so much.
Yeah, thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Okay. Bryn, did you have any other presentation, or was that?
That's all I've got.
Okay. Hi. Do you have a public comment? I'm just joking. Okay, as mentioned, we'd like to make this, go into our public comment portion of our meeting for this particular item, the Adeline and Anthem development, and so we'll do that. It's under the same provision as our regular public comment, 2 minutes, and we will not interchange with those comments. We just ask you, I know there's a lot of emotion out there, maybe even some angry feelings. We just ask you to please display some very good decorum, no booing, no cheering of one another. So just let's treat it as an evening to come together as a community and address concerns that you have. And so if you would please be so kind to do that.
I just want to make sure we're very clear on this particular project. It's down to 900 units max, in addition to absolutely no townhomes and no apartments in this whatsoever. And it's proposed as well to have 50 acres of commercial in this project as well. Okay. And senior housing of 55 on up.
And so we will also have a 2-minute time limit, so do not be upset if I cut you off at the 2-minute. We'll have a buzzer that goes off, so please understand, just so we can give everybody an opportunity to address this. So we'll begin with Brian Call. If you'd like to come forward.
Hello, Mayor and Council. My name is Brian Call, and I've been a resident of Harriman for the last 7 years. One of the things I love about Harriman is the opportunity we have to volunteer to be involved and make this a great city. And as I've been involved in a number of things, I've appreciated the council's willingness to listen to citizen feedback and to try and make Harriman a great place for everyone. I feel like we've fallen short with that a little bit lately in terms of some of our planning and listening to citizen feedback. I've been involved in the recent referendum because I feel like we've approved a general plan that hasn't taken into account the wants and needs of our citizens. Some of my specific concerns, I'm the chair of the School Community Council at Black Ridge Elementary, and I have a great concern about whether we're planning our development accounting for schools and how our children will have safe walking routes and how many schools we're going to have in a short area trying to pick up and drop off. When I think of 900 units and the average number of children per family, that's a whole elementary school worth of kids that has to be accounted for, and how are we going to put that where we already have a high school and a number of other schools? I'm concerned about water usage. I've been in other city council meetings where we talk about we're in a desert, we have limited water resources. We've got to consider culinary water use versus irrigation water use. At the end of the day, I feel like we need to step back a little bit. I think some improvements have been made. I appreciate the progress, but let's step back, especially where we have a number of citizens signing a petition to have a referendum to rethink the general plan and make sure we can come together with something we all feel good about. If we can do that, if we can step back and rethink this, make sure we've thought through the development, thought through the impact of education, thought through the other things that need to be considered, traffic, water, et cetera, then I think we can come together and continue to have Harriman be a great place. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, Vicki. I cannot get this name. Sorry.
Hi, my name is Vicki Macias. I think I agree with the prior comment. I'm concerned about, we're still at 900 units. I get we are all single family. I'm a little worried about what we're going to do with the senior. I still have a concern, is, a tenth of an acre enough to put a 1,250 square foot home on with a front yard and a backyard and a side yard? I lived in a 1,350 square foot home prior to moving to Harriman, and I had more land than that, and I still had a fairly small yard. So I guess I would like to ask the council as well to consider our concerns when you make your vote. This isn't about you. This isn't about the developers. This is about us as a community, and we're all part of that community. So I guess I would ask tonight that you think about what we want as a community, not necessarily what you want as a council when you make your vote and your decision. Thank you.
Thanks, Vicki. Steve Garrett.
Steve Garrett, 5443 Genoa Court. As I come here tonight, I'm really shocked that we're even here right now. I can't believe that we're trying to force this issue through. Tomorrow, the sun will come up on this development. The next day, the sun will come up on this development. A month from now, it will still be there. 2 months from now, it'll be there still. Another council will be sworn in. The property will still be there. There is no reason to try to force this issue through and defy the will of the residents. The organizers of this referendum have come close to reaching their goal of 5,000 signatures. That is more people than voted in the last election. Are you willing, seriously, to ignore the voice of more people than actually voted in our last municipal election? I would be stunned if you make that decision tonight. This issue needs to be, let it play out. Sometimes, and I told you guys, a couple of you, earlier on, I said, sometimes the right thing is doing nothing. The right thing was doing nothing then. The right thing is doing nothing now. Sometimes issues are too contentious to be dealt with and handled at this time. I think that is where we're at on this. I think the residents' voice needs to be heard with the referendum. We need to see how that plays out. That is my comments for this evening. Thank you and good night.
Thanks, Steve. Haley Hill.
I'm Haley Hill. So over the past, I'm one of the leaders of the referendum. The past 45 days, I've knocked on hundreds of doors. I've spoken to close to 1,000 residents, and I am speaking for a lot of them when I say that we feel that many of the council is not listening to us. We want a better plan, a more responsible plan with more balanced growth and less density. We want larger lots. We want you guys to think about the infrastructure and the schools, the police, the roads, the water, and people aren't happy. The overwhelming majority that I talk to all say the same thing. They aren't happy with the direction the city's going, and they thought that they would stay here forever, and now they're considering leaving. Many have expressed concern that they've showed up to meetings, they've sent emails, they've posted comment, and they don't feel like anyone listens. Multiple people in Nicole's district have told me they have emailed you and not a single word in response. And I think that's insulting, and people are insulted. Mayor Freeman, a lot of people are really upset with the change in your views. You have said that your voting has contradicted the things that you've said in the past. You said that you would go door to door and talk to people and see how you're doing. We're coming to you. We went door to door, and people aren't happy with what's happening here. I spoke to some staff that have expressed concerns with snow removal. No new trucks have been purchased. No new employees have been hired, and we're building tons of new homes that have to have snow removal. That's just a small part of the things that need to be considered. We have to think down the road so that we can support all these rooftops that are being built. So to those of you who haven't been listening to us, you've allowed power or something else to cloud your vision. You think you know better than the people who've elected you and the people you're supposed to serve. And we would ask that you would not vote on this tonight. Wait and respect the residents and what we want. Thanks.
Thanks, Haley. Lisa Brown.
Promise I won't cry this time. And I would also like to say that I do not feel it is appropriate to vote on this tonight, and largely because tomorrow is our due date for these referendum signatures, but also because back in October, our city attorney commented to the work meeting that his recommendation would be not to pass a zoning ordinance that is inconsistent with the plan that is subject to the referendum. Okay, so not only would that be irresponsible, as Mr. Brems pointed out, but it highlights the lack of consideration that we feel like the city is demonstrating for the public. And with that being said, we see that the city is still trying to circumvent, at least we feel, the referendum process by allowing these master development agreements to fall supposedly under the 2014 plan and the newly amended plan. We question how this is so, and when we have emailed the city to ask, we have not received sufficient answers. Last night, really the only comment we received was that this is an issue for the city attorney, and we feel the public needs a very forthright and a very transparent answer to this question and to why the city is promoting the wishes of the developers over the 5,000 referendum signers. I also read in the Adeline addendum that what seems to be a loophole for this developer not to fulfill the agreement that was made on September 13th to annex the 900 acres. As that issue was kind of the make or break that Mr. Tischler put in the deal there, we find it concerning that it is not being honored as it was intended to be, and feel like the public needs an answer for why. Finally, as one of the referendum sponsors, I received the 100-word fiscal statement from the city, but in response to that, I want to tell you that you cannot put a price on the loss of trust and respect of your constituents. Unfortunately, when you continue to push through agreements as this, you are doing exactly that. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. But we'd ask you, please, this is not a forum to express yourself with clapping. Thank you. Emily Berbert.
Good evening. Emily Berbert. Sorry, I have a little cold. We chose to build our house in Harriman because of the open feel and away from the craziness of all the people. And before we built, we specifically looked at the general plan of Harriman because we thought it was going to be a good indication of what the city officials had envisioned for Harriman as a whole. And in the 5 years that we've been here, we've seen it change over and over, and it's become a mess of a city. Growth is inevitable, and I understand that, but it needs to make sense. Our city has become a hodgepodge of development agreements that have been hastily passed without proper planning and without a proper general plan. Good cities planning comes from a vision from both elected city council members and staff and residents who elected you guys. Commercial is needed, and I think all residents understand that. But it needs to make sense, and sometimes it makes sense in areas and sometimes it doesn't. The farther west that you go on Mountain View, it doesn't make sense because we just live in an area that it's not going to make sense. We need to have other ideas of how to lower property tax and use that natural resources that we have, like the Harriman Hills. I love the city that I live in. That's why I'm an active citizen and a concerned citizen. That's why I'm on the Arts Council. That's why I get to be with these royalty over here and do things with them. I want to help this place grow, and I want to give back to my community. Some things that people have said is that we can't fix the general plan. It's already done. But you guys have showed us that through rezoning and changes, you can make a difference, and you can make a general plan that makes sense. A general plan that has responsible growth, and we just need to stick to that plan. And other cities have done that. They've been able to stick to their guns and say, you know, you're going to be in our city, this is what we expect. And I just know that you guys can do something, and it just has to be the right thing for the Harriman city and for its residents. Thanks.
Okay. Betsy Biven, hope I pronounced that right.
Good evening. Thank you. My name's Betsy Biven, rather new to Harriman. Little background, I have a degree in geography from the University of California, Santa Barbara, and I'm an RN. And I read the mission statement about promoting a high quality of life. And before my daughter and family moved here and I moved here, I kind of reviewed the area and found that a portion of Harriman is in a Superfund site. And I realized that it's mitigated by EPA regulations and such. And I read something today, it said, there's a rumor that the water quality is just fine here because of Kennecott and the mitigating things that Kennecott and whoever does to the water. Well, when you grow as this area has grown, you have increased runoff, you have increased chance of flooding, you have less refilling of aquifers. And I looked something up today, too, that rather concerned me, and that was water reports. We get some of our water from the Jordan Valley Conservancy District. And it has not passed January, March of this year, some of the requirements. And the things that kind of attracted my attention were hexavalent chlorine or chromium, radium 226, 228, giardia, and cryptosporium. Anyhow, when you have too much growth, you can't keep the infrastructure up, you cannot maintain the quality of water. In the mission statement, it says that you want to promote a high quality of life. This is not promoting a high quality of life. Please consider what everybody here is saying today, please.
Thanks, Betsy. Brent Moody.
First, I want to commend Mr. Young on the quality of the homes that he's planning on building in this area. I do feel that that is a good change from some of the things that happened in the past. There might not have been as much opposition to some of the growth that we've had if that had been done in other places. I do have a concern with the proposal, though, because it more than doubles the size of the medium density cluster. I believe that this change was a shock to many of the citizens, particularly when it came so closely after the new master plan was approved. It led to, I think, from those I talked to, a sense of betrayal by those that were fighting against the lower density. I also appreciate Mr. Young's willingness to work with the Planning Commission and others, and that he has reduced the number of units to 900. This does bring it, I feel, closer to the master plan. Still, I'm concerned that the proposal is based on the maximum density. It seems like that's what we're doing with most of our properties these days, is basing it off of the maximum density allowed by the plan, instead of the minimum or maybe even the average of the allowed density. Based on the master plan, the medium density cluster would have been between 13 and 21% of the units in the development. However, with the new numbers, it would be 28% of the units. As far as actual numbers, it goes from 104, as we saw a minute ago, to 250 units in that medium density cluster. I would ask that the approval of the plans be delayed until they can be changed to reduce the number of medium density cluster units. I would suggest that it be brought back in line with the current general plan of 15 to 20% of the units. I would suggest that also that we try to get the number of units to be closer to the average allowed by the master plan. I'm not opposed to all density, but I think there needs to be a little more balance, and I'm not sure that we're quite there yet, and I think with a little more planning, we can make this even better. Thank you.
Thank you, Bran. That's all of the comment forms I have, but you're certainly welcome to come up. Certainly, if anyone would like to make a comment. You'd just be kind enough to state your name when you come up.
My name is Jennifer Bangeter, and I live in the Copper Creek Estates on the northeast end of Harriman. And I will try to keep my emotion out of this. One of the many things that concerns me about the numbers of units and density, I guess we'll just call it that, is the effect that it has on the schools, the effect that it has on the traffic, the effect that it has on the police and the fire departments. I got a notice in my mail the other day that I believe it was the fire department was proposing a $30 tax increase. I'm completely for supporting our fire department and police and everything like that, but what is this growth going to do to that? What are our taxes going to look like after this growth? We had an incident in our neighborhood a few days ago where there was a backpack found full of Harriman citizen residents' mail that had been stolen. The lady took it to the police, and he said this is becoming very common. The more people that we have in Harriman with these higher densities, I know Craig Tishner said that there's no townhomes and apartments, but that doesn't mean that the density's not there. You can shove many single units into that or into those areas, just like you can do with the townhomes. I would say my last thing is we care very much who we elect, and we care. It's important to us that those who we do elect represent us, and the results of the referendum are meant to show that it is important to us that our elected officials support and represent us on this issue. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Hello, my name is Robert Bradfield. I live over in the Heritage Place Estates, right to the south of the development that we're talking about here. Craig, I want to bring this to you. I went around and knocked on several hundred homes in your district over the last few weeks. 99 to 98% of the people I talked to do not want you supporting high density or this kind of development in Harriman. They mostly talked about the traffic patterns. They mostly talked about the congestion in general, not having enough commercial to support the way that which the city council is planning and the way that things have been going. So I don't know if you're planning on being a one-term city council member, but I would highly suggest that you listen to these people. And I'm only saying that to you because I knocked on the doors. They asked me what you voted for. I did not tell them. I said to look at the records and to see how you voted. And so when they look at tonight how you vote, I think that would be wise for you to consider. Also, Mayor Freeman, you didn't run for re-election. I think you're a wonderful person. I don't know what your plans are going forward, if you're going to stay here in Harriman or not. But if you vote tonight, and if you try and underhandedly put this through a day before the referendum comes through, just like was discussed, over 5,000, almost 5,000 votes, more than what was done in the recent election, what are you going to tell people when you see them at Smith's if you still stay in this city? What are you going to tell people when you talk to them about what your legacy was and what you've done? Build mass homes and mass population in your city, or that you let the referendum have a chance to let the citizens help you to make you look like the wonderful man that you are? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Becky Slagowski. I live at 5942 Grand Pear Avenue. And the joke is from you guys is that I'm the head shaker. And they all kind of joke about that because I guess apparently in one of my meetings I did this. But anyways, I'm addressing to you tonight, this council, in regards to the general plan of the city. We have a beautiful place that we all call home here. I want many others to call it home too. However, we need to plan more efficiently on how we welcome these new neighbors to our city. Our schools are full, roads are already failing, and will continue to degrade, and people will leave since the development that we're doing are not friendly to our vision of the city. We, the people, want something different in this city. We don't want to have to go back and fix the roads, or bond for new schools, or not have enough workers to clear and take care of the facilities we already have here. We want to plan for the future responsibly, and in doing so, we need to slow down and put clearer glasses on and plan what we, the people, want. I look at it like this. I have 6 children. It's like this. It says, it's like teaching your children to save for that special toy and reminding them when they ask you for something else. What do you really want and need? The residents of this city want better roads, commercial in the right places, density that isn't confusing, which I admit you guys did help fix tonight, so thank you. And the great thing is that we've asked you to help us, all of you to help us. And we're reminding you of this tonight, of why we've elected you to do this. So please represent us, and don't think we don't see through the fog. Thank you.
Thanks, Becky.
Good evening. I'm Mike Van Schaar. And I didn't plan on speaking tonight, and I didn't prepare any comments, so forgive me if I'm stumbling over myself a little bit. I think it's pretty clear that we want less density in Harriman, right? I think that's been made pretty evident. However it's gone about, you know, however we do that, that's what the citizens want, is less density. And I think there's some good reasons for that. You know, if I look at the west side of the Salt Lake Valley, what do we see in the west side of the Salt Lake Valley? Is that the shining jewel of the Salt Lake Valley, the west side? Not so much. I mean, West Valley, Taylorsville, Magna, is that really what we want Harriman to become? Is that really the level of communities that we want in Harriman? Do we want to see it degrade and go downhill and become a low-income place where it's not safe to live, like West Valley, some of these other places? I just don't think that that's what we want. So in general terms here, whether it's this development or the next one or the next one or the one after that, I think it's worth considering, how do we make the city a better place? The kind of a place that actually attracts people that they want to come. And Harriman had a really good start at that, and I think that it's not beyond hope to save. And I would just ask that we, in general, consider this in the future, that we try to make this a great place to live, with lots of homes, with wonderful families in them, and that we keep it as a desirable place to live as possible. It means infrastructure, it means great policing, it means great city council members who are responsive to the residents, it means a lot of things. And you guys have a sense for this. You're not idiots. You're great people. And we just want to attract more great people. Not a bunch of low-income housing, not a bunch of apartments, not a bunch of high-rise. So there's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Mike.
Hello, I'm Heather Kemp. I live in the Copper Creek Estates. And I just wanted to comment a concern that I had from your work meeting earlier. When you were discussing this development, I heard you bring up the 900 acres that would be annexed into the city if we work with the developer on this plan. My major concern about that is the concern I believe that Craig brought up, where it says in that plan that we would give up our rights to develop that 900 acres according to our city, that the county would take control of that. That is not what we want for our city. I ask you to please wait and let's find a better plan that will be better for our city than to have that 900 acres out of our control and given over to the county. Thank you.
Thanks, Heather.
Hi, my name is Chris Braun, and I live in Harriman. I've been here since 2008, and one of the reasons why I came out here is because I enjoyed the atmosphere, kind of like not congested. I'm from back east, from Northern Virginia, and that was one of the reasons why I left, because of the congestion, just because too many people, and you're on the road for hours, and try to get somewhere, you can't get there because of the traffic. It's just ridiculous, and that's what I liked about Harriman, was it had the open space, and I understand people want a place to live, but let's not cram it. If you've never lived in that kind of area, you don't understand. I did, and it's ridiculous. I concur with Lisa. I knocked on the door, I did the referendum, and people felt the same way as she said. They did not want these high densities, the congestion. They want a little bit more open space. Commercial, yes. So please consider not passing this referendum tonight.
Thanks, Chris.
Hi, I'm Danny Hill, and I live in Lafayette Estates. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but one thing I did notice before the public comments was opened, Mayor, you addressed the fact that people are angry. You knew that there's emotions here. Craig, you immediately said we're taking out the apartments, the townhomes. You're aware of the discontent of the people. I think it's as representatives of the people, we need to listen. We've been out knocking doors for a month and a half now. I have not heard one person say, we're excited what's happening with the city, we're excited what the council's doing. People are angry. We wish that you guys would listen to us, take a step back, pay attention to what we're doing. My wife and I moved here. We've got 2 beautiful kids. We came here for the family-friendly area. We want to stay here. We want to raise our kids in an area that's safe. We feel like the direction that the city is going is not taking that, and we feel like there's personal agendas going on that are not reflecting the voice of the people. So please respect that, respect what the people are saying, and we hope that you will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Pedro Martins. We moved here about 3 years ago from San Jose, California.
What was your name again? I'm sorry.
Pedro Martins.
Pedro.
And I'm very familiar what it's like to live in an area that's very crowded and congested with lots of traffic. One of the things I wanted to point out is I don't see anyone up here proposing that we go along with what's happening. And I hope that that's a sign to the council that, you know, there's good reason to heed the advice that's been given by the citizens. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Pedro.
My name's Michelle Ward. I am just wondering if you guys have any idea how much time these people have put into the referendum. I only helped for 2 nights, and I worked my butt off those 2 nights, but they have been working for 45 days straight. And it would be a big slap in the face to 5,000 people if I think you did vote a yes or a no on this. My point is, if you guys had to go out and get 5,000 signatures to go against the referendum, I can put money down that you wouldn't be able to do it because there are so many people that are wanting to do something different and make a change in this city. And that's all we want to do is get our voices out and make a change. So hopefully you guys understand that and can do it. Thanks.
Okay, I think we'll go ahead and close our public portion of our meeting and open it up to discussion among council.
I guess I got a question for the developer. You've sent out a couple of letters to the residents in that area, in that neighborhood. What was the responses that you got? I was able to attend a meeting a couple Mondays ago to kind of get a feel for the Danzy project as well as this one that were there, but everything seemed positive. There were residents from Lafayette and in that area that responded and shown up, and they were actually pretty pleased with the plan. So my question is, why did these people not show up to your meeting? Were they notified?
We've had numerous neighborhood meetings for the last several weeks, and we've invited them out, and we've actually had the people that have come in general have been pleased with the layout, the concept, and a lot of people haven't come to the meetings. I don't know why exactly. We've reached out to all the people in the referendum, and we have tried sincerely to have them come to the table. We've been going through this process on this project for an extremely long time. We've had numerous neighborhood and community meetings. They have not been willing to come and talk to us, to come and explain to us their views as far as what they would like to see on the property. Everybody talks about, well, we need more time. Well, what we really need is open communication with the neighborhood, which we really would appreciate, and that's why I've made it an effort to meet with people on a weekly basis and open the door to them. I don't recognize any of the people here, one individual that has come to the most recent open houses. Maybe they're busy, I don't know. But we'd like to certainly open up the dialogue with them and talk to them about the project. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, so you would, if, let's say hypothetically, this zoning passes tonight, you would still have to proceed through planning and zoning for the rest of the development.
Yeah, this is just the zoning on the project. I'd have to bring in each individual community, each individual section of this property, and we'd have to go through traffic. We'd have to address, of course, the schools, the water, the storm drain, the flood control, each of these individually. This is actually just one step in several steps that have to go under the scrutiny of the neighbors and the community. And so maybe that would be, since we were, maybe that would be the best time to do that is during the upcoming meetings at Planning Commission and City Council, because they'll all have to be reviewed and all the neighbors would be able to inject their comments on it. And that would certainly be a great way to get the citizens' input on each community individually as they come in. So.
While you're up there, Doug, I just want to make note that my feeling is, and that you have listened to the residents and their feedback. I just jotted down a few notes here. To me, it seems that the plan that we're looking at today is a direct result of feedback that you've received from the council members as well as the public at large. I wrote down this plan that we see today versus the various iterations that we've seen in the past has far less density, has absolutely no high density, no attached housing that you completely removed during the last meeting. You increased the number of senior housing. You added estate lots with animal rights, which was one of those concerns. The commercial development is on 118th South, so it's on a high traffic corridor. There is buffering from the existing homes, and you've expressed a willingness to work with us on 900 acres that is not in our city. It is currently in the county. The hope is that we could have that in our city so that we would have some say. So I just want to make note that I do think that you have been listening. I do think that the council have expressed a number of concerns that we have heard from residents. I think you've listened directly to residents. Is it where all of the residents want? Clearly it's not, since you're here tonight, but that doesn't mean that you have not been listening, and I want that to be very clear, because I think you have been.
I think I've been involved in referendums before, and generally you can sit down with the leaders. I haven't really truly been able to identify the leaders of the group, and
ma'am, please, let's allow the same privilege to the developer to speak, please. But he's not up here. We asked him a question, Haley. Come on. Let's take a break for just a minute. We're going to take a 5-minute break. Could we have everyone take their seat? We're about ready to resume.
Hey, oh my gosh. Did I not?
Mr. Tishner's out on an interview, so we'll go ahead forward because I think we're going to take some action here. I think that'll be appealing to everyone. So I know Mr. Henderson wanted to take just a few moments, and then I'm going to entertain a motion.
Thank you. I just want to follow up on a couple of comments that I was having with some of the residents, kind of a sidebar, as I know several of us probably were. But I just feel like we're maybe confusing two things tonight. There's the overarching issue of the general plan and the way that that was carried out, and that's what the referendum is on, is the general plan. This is part of the general plan, but I think sometimes when we as a council are looking at this particular property, and I know the developer looks at it this way, I would if I were a property owner, is they're looking at just this piece. And while I'll say, yes, we've made significant progress here, and I've lauded Doug at every chance that I get that he's been willing to come to the table and negotiate and work towards something, and we're getting there. I think the overall tenor of the conversation is that we're doing it the wrong way, right? We're getting there with this property and with the other one that are the major components of the general plan. But I think the residents feel, I've said this publicly, I think we've not necessarily circumvented the process, but we got off track months and months ago, and we never truly corrected course. And the further we push it down this course, the further off track we get. So while some of the results, I mean, the result might be a good one, it might be the best one, but we're doing it the wrong way. It's just my opinion, but I think that that's kind of the two things that have been expressed is the way that we're going about this decision making. I believe that's what the referendum is really about. It's not about this particular property or the other property. It's about the way the decisions are being made. As far as the items for tonight go, I know I mentioned the work meeting. I have a whole laundry list. I've spent hours and hours and hours poring over the development agreement. And all of I always say the devil's in the details. There are a lot of details. So I have 4 pages of notes to go over with just that development agreement. We have a lot of other items on the agenda tonight, especially the tenor in the room. It might be good to consider continuing it.
Okay. I agree. I would like to recommend, and based on, we appreciate your comments tonight, that we continue this item to December 13th for possible action. That gives us enough time for Doug to meet with council members to address the concerns, as well as meeting with those who are here tonight, referendum people, come together. So I'll offer that as a motion.
You want me to make that motion? Or
I
your
just did.
motion, or then I'll second your motion.
Okay, we'll call for the vote. Nicole?
Yes.
Corley?
Yes.
Yes.
Jared? And I vote yes. Let me just say something, if I may. I hope this has been a good lesson for all of us. Steve Garrett said something I think very insightful. We shouldn't be here tonight. This shouldn't be happening tonight. And had we come together as a group, we can do a lot of good things coming together. And I don't know what's been, and I'm not going to make accusations tonight, but for some reason we haven't been able to come together. I think had we done that 2 months ago, I don't think we'd even be talking about this tonight. I think we'd all be, we're never going to be 100% pleased with what happens. It's like a marriage. You move the dial to where you feel comfortable, and your mate moves to where they feel comfortable. It's not always going to be a win-win. But I think we can come together as a community, and I'm hoping in this next month, before the next meeting, that we'll take every opportunity and tear down the walls that we built, whether it was from the council or from residents. Let's tear these walls down. Come together. That's what Herriman's about. And get a development agreement that we're all going to be happy with, or a general plan that we're all going to be happy with. Because, and I've told you this before, growth is going to come here. And I wish it wasn't personally. I grew up here when there's 400 people here. And I don't like the growth any more than you do. But we got to deal with it. And so let's get together. We've got some great minds in this room. We can make this work. And so I just encourage us to come together in the spirit of cooperation, love, understanding for everybody's opinion, and we can do this thing. I'm confident. So thank you. I appreciate the opinions you've given, and I do really respect those who've walked the streets and got the signatures. I really do. You're not my adversary. You're not. And I've gone up to your tables and congratulated you for what you're doing. That's very good. That's part of the constitutional right you have. That's a good process. In fact, I think you've helped push the dials to some degree, so your efforts have not been in vain. So let's make it really fruitful and accomplished and come together. So Doug, let's make every effort to open the calendar and get what we need to do and get it done. Okay.
May I just remind you, the referendum's not about this project. It's about the general plan, the entire plan for the city. It's not just about this project. Please, let's keep that in mind, whether it's this one, or the Danzy property, or any others. I just gotta tell a story. I've been thinking this the whole time we've been sitting here, but our new Miss Harriman gets up and says that her platform is to go out and encourage people to become involved in the public process. I've got a 6th grader at the elementary school that says that his friends come up to him, and they know that his dad's on the city council, want to know why the city council is doing such bad things. People don't. He knows where we're at. He asks me about this stuff all the time. Nope, I explain this is how it is. This is my position. This is the process I want to go. He knows that haven't voted for the things that are contentious, but other people don't. He sees that. And so when I hear her say she's trying to encourage not only adults, but kids to get involved, and I know his experiences, and I know my experiences, why I'm sitting here today was I was sitting out there, about 5 years ago now. I was one of 9 residents who got a letter that said that 300 acres behind my house was in the county, was going to be annexed into the city and rezoned to some R210. I had no idea what it was. I tried to find out. I had a really hard time getting the information of what it was, and that just made me angry. I realized when I got some of the information that nobody knew about it. There were only 9 homes in my subdivision of 150 that got a notice. So I copied that paper. I went and knocked door to door. A lot of you guys are sitting here tonight because I knocked on your door. Said, do you know what's going on? We got involved, and we did see a difference. And I think I saw from that experience the community pride that we want to have. You know, people said, geez, we can do this. It was interesting, and I just told one of my neighbors, I said, you remember when I went out and knocked doors and got you guys involved? I got myself involved way more than I should. Careful, you might be sitting up here. I had probably about half of my neighbors said thanks. It was like after one of these meetings, half of them came up to me and said, thanks for all your efforts, but why waste your time? You can't fight City Hall. They won't listen to you. And I didn't listen to them. And as all you guys know, the reason I'm sitting here now is that I didn't listen to them, and we fought, and we went, and we worked with the developer. They were willing to listen. We found something that came together. Now we're seeing those homes built. Those people are coming to our church, and I'm listening to my neighbors tell those people, this is because of us. Like there's a pride, a sense of ownership that your neighborhood is there, your homes are being built there because we were part of this. And that's why I'm so discouraged that hasn't been the process for this. So I totally applaud the people that are doing the referendum. The process was flawed. We got off track. It wasn't anybody's fault. It was just the way the sequence of events happened. But you're holding their feet to the fire, and thank you for being involved. I hope you continue to be. I hope that we don't prove those people right who said, don't get involved, you can't fight City Hall. So thank you all tonight.
Well, let me just mention something too, Jared, if I may. And I know that it's on the general plan, but I would also encourage us to talk about Adeline. And the reason being is because if the referendum goes through, we go to the 2014 plan, it will then require an election. So the developer, I don't think, should be held in limbo to say you're going to wait 6 months to a year before you can do it. So that's why I would like some encouragement. Yeah, let's talk about the general plan, but we also ought to get feedback on the project.
Absolutely.
Because
like I said,
we're
just
not
keep that in mind.
we're not waiting for the general plan, another due general plan before they can act on a development. So.
That's why I've said it's great to have our conversations and work meetings and make the progress that we have, but we have to keep in mind that it's one part of the general plan.
Okay, thank you. So 6.3, 6.4, and 6.5 have been continued, just for clarification. So we'll now go on to item 6.9. Yes. Well, I would like to also, Haley, maybe you could give Doug your phone. Would that be okay, that you can contact him? Someone, are you the point person to contact? I'm just looking for someone Doug can contact. Okay. I'd just like someone so he can contact. Okay, thank you. Again, thank you so much for, I know some of you are going to leave. Thank you for, and appreciate your comments tonight. Okay, item 6.9 is discussion and consideration of a development agreement with West Valley EP LLC with respect of a Maverick convenience store station, 7,500 square foot retail center located at or near 12626 South Harriman Main Street. Okay, who's going to do that? John?
Or, this is the development agreement. I've done enough.
Okay, this is a development agreement. You've seen it a couple of times for the Maverick convenience store and a 7,500 square foot retail center. There's one change that was made to the development agreement. I just want to call to your attention, and that's in paragraph 2.6, Roman numeral I. It used to state, any and all fuel deliveries shall only occur between the hours of 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. of the same day. They made a change to that we might want to agree to a different time. So there's that exception there. The reason they did that is requiring all fuel deliveries, et cetera, to go out onto Harriman Boulevard. They thought that we might be able to make that concession. That's your call.
Okay. I know.
There were a couple of other things that were talked about at Planning Commission. So, Bryn, you might want to listen to this. They talked about signage, caliper of trees, and types of trees. Now, that did not make it into development agreement. I don't know if it needs to, or if you can take care of it on your end.
It'll be on the planning commission plan when, yeah. We'll add it to the planning commission conditions of approval.
Do I address a question I've got, or do you, or the Maverick person? Where's he at?
Somewhere.
Is he here?
He's back, yeah.
He's out making cinnamon rolls.
What's that?
He's out making cinnamon rolls. Go ahead and ask your question. I'll try.
I want to note that John's got a tie on. Yeah, I don't see John ever wear a tie. The question I had was on item 2.3, or 2.2, excuse me, the landscape plan. And I'd just like to make certain we get clarification. I know we went, and maybe we can address that for a minute, the Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District. There is an easement that runs in that southeast area, and just for public record, what was decided on that and to comply with that easement?
Correct. That we went in and discussed them. Mayor was there, Jordan Valley Water District was there, myself as a developer, and also a couple individuals that represented Maverick. The easement that they were wanting us to definitely pay attention to was to not have deep-rooted shrubbery or trees that would impact the transportation line. And that's that 12-inch water line that is overlaid by the engineers that we went in and saw. So I think there is a little bit. Bryn, do we have that exhibit?
I don't have the other one.
Okay. I can get that sent over, or we can pull it up on the GIS. But we have drawn this landscape plan to abide by those suggestions by Jordan Valley. So the deep-rooted trees and shrubbery are at least 10 feet from that pipe.
So did we detail that? I guess the question I have in the agreement, the type of shrubbery that's going to be in there, will that be in that?
It would be put on commission, or excuse me, the conditions put on by the planning commission.
Okay.
And we'll bring the definitions. We have our landscape key provided and what type of shrubbery. And if, like we mentioned at the last Planning Commission meeting, whatever the city requires, we'll comply with.
The other question I had, sorry, it's hard to deal with these computers sometimes. Oh, where are you? Well, we had a list that says, I think it's item 2.6, and it lists all, the developer shall require the store to operate the subject to the following terms. It goes through hours. It says all fuel deliveries shall be equipped with vape, okay, and then something about delivery. I think they are to come off the Harriman Parkway, is that correct?
Correct, all deliveries will come
Yeah, it says
from
all
Harriman
deliveries enter and
Parkway
exit. And I was
exit.
just gonna maybe put some verbiage in there for collection of garbage. Does those vehicles, it doesn't make any reference, it has deliveries, but it doesn't make any reference to garbage trucks. Will they be required to come off Harriman Parkway?
They will be held under the same standard as the
So
deliveries.
I didn't know if we wanted to add another line item there so that it does, because I don't want them on, what's the other street that starts with an A?
Ashfield.
I wouldn't want them going through there as well.
Correct, and Bryn, is that something that we can do with a condition? Or is that something that you guys would like
I
in the
think John can
development
just add it to the development agreement.
Okay.
And we can just,
That item will be added.
I'll just note for the record that it preserves the access on Ashfield Drive, which was something the residents were very concerned about. So that's a resident concern that will funnel traffic onto their residential streets.
Correct, and you and I have talked as well with, we'll discuss with Blake what best signage we can to deter any public traffic through the local neighborhood there. Whether it's coming out of the drive-through or the exit for no commercial or public traffic through Ashfield.
Right.
This question on the restricted uses, it says Schedule 6, but I'm not seeing that attached.
That schedule should have been added in. It was part of our public slide. There's 78 uses that we voluntarily
that was
prohibited.
one of our lengthy discussions. I just don't see
Correct.
it attached here.
That should be added. It's the same slide we've used in our previous.
So for the public, that was to make sure we don't have any uses in the
smoke shops,
right,
alcohol, etc. The famous
payday
prototype.
lending, that sort of thing.
What?
Payday lending, all of
Correct.
those. So
Yep.
we had a whole
and that's in there.
list. I just want to make sure that's actually attached to the agreement.
Yeah, and that was per your recommendation. So thanks, Jared.
Any other questions, concerns? You've done a good job. Thank you so much. John, did you have anything else you'd like to add? I'll accept a motion on this item if we're prepared to do so.
Oh, we're missing a council member still, sorry.
Oh.
I wasn't pointing at you or smirking at you.
Well, I was just smirking back.
Yeah. Are you ready? So we got 4.
I'm good with this. We want to go bring him back in, tell him he's got to get in here to vote.
Yeah.
Send our deputy.
Send the top out there to get him.
Okay, who would like to make the motion?
I'll make a motion to approve. What are we? Let's see. Make sure I got this right one. 6.9. Motion to approve ordinance number 2017-51, approving a development agreement for the West Valley EP LLC with respect to approximately 2.71 acres of real property located at 12626 Harriman Parkway.
I'll second.
Do you want
Motion
to,
second?
do you want to add that an amendment to that section 2. Roman numeral 5, all deliveries and garbage collection to enter
Yes, with the
Chairman
addition
Harriman.
as noted by the attorney.
Okay.
That's sufficient?
I will second with that condition.
We'll call for the vote. Jared?
Yes.
Corley?
No.
Craig?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. That motion carries. Go to item 6.10, discussion consideration of a resolution approving a proposed fee increase for Wasatch Front Waste and Recycling District to be effective. Hey, let's just continue this, should we? I'm just joking.
Was that official motion? Yeah.
You've been so patient, and I feel so bad to have you sitting there.
I'm so thankful that we were after. Thank you. And I want to commend you.
You know, the waters have calmed quite a bit here.
Yes. And I just want to commend you. Every time I go to a municipal council meeting, I know that you are faced with very tough issues, and I just respect you for your composure and your willingness to listen and to adjust. I mean, that's what we have to do as public officials. We have to adjust. So, good work. So, I think you all know me, Pam Roberts, Executive Director for the Wasatch Front Waste and Recycling District. I'm back before you to review the proposed fee increase going into 2018 of the residential fees, and I'm not sure that I'm up. Okay, there we go. Am I operating it now? No. No.
Is that worse?
It's good for me. Okay. As you know, I was here just last month. In the interim of that time, our board did meet on October 23rd and did tentatively adopt the tentative 2018 budget with the fee increase, and it was a unanimous vote. One of the things I was asked to do is make sure that when I go out before the councils to talk about the difference between us as a district and UFA and UPD. And so just briefly, I think that everyone has an understanding that we're not an opt-in and opt-out district. The district was established in 1977 with all of the unincorporated county, and the sanitation division under the county was the designated service provider for the entire district. And then since that time, of course, cities have incorporated. So over that time, cities have remained in the district. If a city would like to leave the district, there's a legal process that needs to take place. First petitioning for de-annexation from the district, and then petitioning Salt Lake, well, the board. I would hope that a municipality would come talk to the board first, and then the final decision is made by the county council. So that's kind of the differences between us and the police and fire. And I'm never good at knowing which direction this might go. So as you know, I think some of the questions, maybe if I can just start there with some of the questions that we left with, and I think one of the big ones was that there was a bit of a discrepancy in the cash balance of year end, and then I'm just going to jump to that page, and oh my goodness, I'm glad I can see it. So, and it was a difference in 2000, if I remember right, 2013 going into 14. So, and I do have Kathy Jensen with me. I want to say that nobody does anything alone. Kathy is our wonderful financial controller. And she inherited some of the information coming into our organization in mid-year of 2015 when...
Hey, this looks a lot better now.
Yeah.
Looks great. Thank you for making that adjustment.
Absolutely. And I guess when I send out the information to the council as a follow-up, it was important to state that the bottom line didn't change. Mm-hmm. But since that time, we've had our third quarter close. And so this particular cash projection is updated as of the date that shows there, October 26th. So we had the third quarter close, and you understand that any kind of cash projection is a point of time or a point in time. So some things have changed. We plugged in the fact that I'm going to go backwards a little bit. We do have a fee increases from the Salt Lake Valley Transfer Station of $1.50 per ton. And what that equates to is about $142,000 annual increase cost to the district. And then we had a increased green fee go up at the Salt Lake Valley facilities for composting of $1. We anticipate maybe about a $3,000 annual cost. We're basically budgeting that, but we know that we can absorb it through the fees that we recoup for that particular service. As I mentioned, we're pushing out our truck replacement, trying to prolong any needed fee increase in the future and planning going forward. One of the things that's very important to us is we're meeting the mandates that we have from the state and both from the county, is that we want to sustain a high 90% customer satisfaction rating. And we're very proud of that. Our residents continually rate us, 93, 95. We were at 1.98 before we started billing, unfortunately. But we have sustained that high 90 percentile. And all the while trying to do this with remaining competitive with our fees. And that's where the big challenge comes in finding a balance. If there's no questions for that, I'll keep going a little bit. One of the things that I think it's important to point out is our revenue streams. And I think you understand that we don't have a diverse portfolio. We are not tax authority. When we were looking at a fee increase, we actually, as a board, I brought up the discussion, should we lobby the county council to assess a property tax for us? And the thought was no, and the county really didn't want to have that discussion or didn't have an appetite for it. So as you can see, 92% of our revenue stream is based on those residential fees. Understanding that at 18 million of that revenue stream goes solely towards residential collections and sustaining our services. There we go. I think it's important to review exactly what that monthly fee pays for. Right now it's $14.75, soon to go to $17, as if we get a majority of the municipalities authorizing the go-ahead. You understand that we have the weekly garbage, weekly recycling, basically everything that's on this particular slide and the service flyer that we publish, with the exception of the green and the glass, which are by subscription. And by the way, those are self-sustaining. They are not subsidized by any of the other residential fees. That's very important. Oh, good, okay. And I think you've seen this before. As you know, basically we're living on our fund balance to try to make up that gap between what will be the $17 in 2018 to get to that 1972 of the actual
that
cost.
was the question I had, Pam.
Yes, sir.
Help me, because we've got the 1972 and we're proposing a 17. Is that because the second can is not going to give you that much revenue?
Right.
237,000. So what's making up that $2.72?
I appreciate you asking the question. Part of it is the other fees, but really where it comes in is the cash. So we draw down our fund balance, and due to that, I asked the board to set a policy going forward, being a little nervous, making sure that I'm going to be able to continue operations and not get too below basically what we can make happen. The board sent a 20% year-end cash balance. Now that might sound high. I think you've heard from UFA that they have 15%. We do not bond for any of our equipment. They do. We have no debt, and I'm very happy about that and want to keep that. So
thought about working for a federal government. We ought to do that.
I like local government much better. Anyway, so what that 20% basically gives us is about 3 months of operating cash.
But Pam, let me just add, excuse me for interrupting, but I'm trying to figure out a $17. Okay, so this 1972 is per household, right?
Per home, per month, yes, sir.
So if we do $17, I'm just trying to think, how's that not going to draw down? You've got a $2.72 difference there.
Yeah, it will draw down the cash. There's no question. In fact, we've budgeted going forward. Kathy, would you mind just letting me know what we have budgeted going forward as far as?
It doesn't need to be a big, we're late, and I apologize for bringing it up, but it's just, I guess what I'm saying is $17 enough?
Well, to remain competitive, I think it's as high as I mean, Kathy certainly would love more, and for operating purposes, absolutely, but to remain competitive in the market with the private haulers just hoping that someday we'll go out of business, I think that we can sustain it. And as you can see with the cash projections going forward, we will sustain up through 2021. Looking at a possible fee increase in 2022, which we as staff will do our best to prolong that. We do have some outside challenges that are happening right now. I think you've heard about the Salt Lake Valley Transfer Station closing. The county mayor has proposed to close it, and initially it was to close January 1. Wasn't happy about that, didn't get to weigh in on that, wasn't part of any discussion. It was just a public announcement. So we scrappled and did our best to lobby to make sure that that didn't happen, and luckily the county council supported prolonging that and doing more research. We have an interlocal agreement, which Councilmember Moser was very much part of the negotiations with the county when we basically we're beholden to take them 85% of our garbage. That will most likely either go away or change because of this. What they're doing is a very drastic change, which really hurts our viability. So in 2018, depending on what happens, we may need to come back for something a little additional in 2019. I think we as staff need to get creative and look at, should we have our services as a menu, and municipalities can basically say we would like to have this service, which would be not having the area cleanup, which I can't imagine any of the areas wouldn't want that. But would they want to pay for that somehow differently? And I know our board chair, Craig Tishner, has come up with some creative ideas, and I think really for us to remain competitive, we need to be flexible and adaptable and listen to municipalities, and it's just nice to have them all at the table now. And I'm hoping that our board will continue to, what I say, play nice in the sandbox and not vie for their own interest, but also looking at the entire interest of everybody that's affected by the service. I don't know if I addressed your question, but the bottom line is we're drawing down cash.
We sure appreciate. Anything else you want to add?
Not unless you have questions for me.
So they're looking at the longevity of the transfer station. I thought there was mention they were going to look at it again in July or later on, because my understanding is if they did proceed to close it in July-ish time, then we would potentially face another fee increase at that time as well because of that. So I can't remember what the dates were, but we had our board meeting and we all approved a tentative budget.
Correct.
And with no knowledge of this transfer station.
Yeah.
Salt Lake County Mayor Ben McAdams then proposed in his budget presentation for 2018 for Salt Lake County, pretty much eliminated the transfer station, which is a significant cost to us that are part of that district. So that's going to trickle down to us as we pay for it as we proceed. I thought it was bad public policy on that process because nobody knew. Nobody knew that it was coming. So, and I've also made some suggestions and try to be creative as I talk to my colleagues on the control board, and I even came up with the ideas of let's see if the cities can start funding some cash into the area cleanup programs to kind of help subsidize what is coming out of the actual homeowners' pockets, because to me, a fee increase is a tax increase. And with that being said, with the county suggesting that they're not doing a tax increase, but with the closure of the transfer station, it's gonna impact us where we're gonna have to increase that fee, which is a tax increase. So not once, but we could get hit with this twice. My major concern with this is the sustainability of the district. And if we get too high, we start marketing ourselves out of the business. And more cities will probably start looking at different options to help keep that cost down, because eventually it's, you know, when does that discussion happen? And I've come up with some creative ideas with the board, but they just didn't want to go along with it. The easy answer for them, I'll be honest, is to do a fee increase. Go ahead, Pam, sorry.
May I just say that there are 6 new municipalities that weren't in, they're not in a position to be able to do something like that. And so that was part of the discussion and part of the reasoning. I just want to make sure that that you understand that it was, nobody was against it. It's just that the timing of it right now. So could that happen instead of another one going forward once they get some sort of a funding? I mean, Kearns Metro Township's already talking about how can we make this happen. Mill Creek City's right there too, so.
But the discussions, I wanted the discussions to start with their municipalities.
And I thought it was great.
Yeah.
You definitely started the ball rolling. Absolutely.
Well, Pam, thank you. I think we're ready for a motion if someone has.
A motion to approve Resolution R39, 2017, approving a proposed fee increase for Wasatch Front Waste and Recycling District to be effective January 1, 2018.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll call for the vote. Nicole?
Yes.
Craig?
No.
Corley?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes.
Thank you.
Okay, got your approval.
Thank
Pam, it's good to see you again.
I do want to give my utmost compliments to Pam and Kathy. They are so great to work with, and they're very on the ball. And really, if it wasn't for them, that transfer station could potentially be closed as of July 1 or January 1, and we could get a significant increase. So.
And there were 6 council members that were definitely in favor of it not. So I really gave my thanks to them as well.
Sorry, I can't help myself,
you.
but the county will do whatever we will be involved in.
Taking him with me next time.
Okay, let's go on to discussion consideration of an ordinance approving the 2017-18 ice skating program rental and access fees for the ice ribbon at Crane Park. This item was discussed previously in our work meeting. So, Wendy?
Yes, it was discussed earlier today and also on September 13th in work meetings. And staff recommendation is to approve the ordinance for the 2017-18 ice skating program and rental and access fees for the ice ribbon at Crane Park, with a recommendation to strike Jordan School District with winter recess and some observed holidays and replace with as deemed necessary. Have any questions?
Okay, I think we've talked about this, unless there's other further discussion.
Nope,
Let's make a motion.
I'll motion to approve ordinance number 2017-52, approving the 2017-2018 ice skating program rental fees, or rental and access fees for the ice ribbon at Crane Park with the amendments as noted by Director Thomas.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Let's make some motions in the second. Guys over here, they're getting all the points.
Efficiency.
So, any further discussion by council? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. Jared?
Yes.
Corley?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. That motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. 612, discussion consideration resolution granting local consent for an on-premise beer recreational liquor license with respect to the RSL Training Academy and Stadium.
We put this in your packet this week to have you, or last week for you to consider it today. The reason for this is RSL is looking to get a packet submitted by the end of the week to get everything done so they can open up on time and have the license available for them. They went out and had a tour with the DABC on the facility, and so Daniel Boyd is here to speak for RSL and kind of talk to you about that. And we included a copy of the actual consent form the city has to sign, and the statute requires that the city passes a resolution for us to be able to approve this, or for a consent form to go forward.
City Council, Mayor Freeman.
Could you state your name, please?
What's that?
for record? Please
Okay.
State your name for record, please.
Okay, my name's Dan Boyd. I'm the COO of Wasatch Restaurant Group, which is Deloy Hansen's hospitality arm. And so I kind of help him with all of his food operations that he's got. Today, what I bring for you today is the discussion on the local consent. So basically, this is Harriman City approving us to get a beer license. We're going to do a recreational beer license for the RSL Training Academy. And with that, again, Gordon spoke that we brought some people in. We actually had 7 different people from the UDABC come out and walk. We measured distances from each one of the locations. So I'll put a quick presentation together for you so we could kind of just go over that really quick. This is kind of the complex. I think you guys can see that we have, basically, we're gonna have 8 soccer fields there, 5 outdoors, 1 stadium, and then 2 indoor that are gonna be serviced year round. So what the liquor license for Zebra, the Zions Bank Real Academy, this is the local consent as part of the UDABC application process. You're not approving a liquor license, you're approving that Harriman City will allow us to go for one. We're looking at a recreational beer license. There is a proximity to the RSL Academy Charter School that we have there, so there's some nuances with that, and I'll discuss those. The indoor arena and the concessions area are within the requirements, meaning that our entrance to the indoor arena is on the east side, and it's easily within the 400 feet to the nearest entrance to the school. Working with the UDABC, and then on the stadium operations and the entrances, because our property line does match up with the stadium out there. One of the solutions is looking at submitting a permit for just professional games and some of our leagues, not youth-sponsored events. So Monarch home games, I think we just got the new schedule. We're looking at 17 games this year. We've got the summer league. This is gonna be more of a recreational league, adult league, and this is where championships might be played. And then we've also are looking at our Warriors professional. We've signed with a professional rugby team, and they'll be playing 8 games out there this year as well. It'll be 3.2 beer dispensing only. Liquor would only be dispensed for specific rented events. For example, if we had a wedding and then we'd go get it, they would basically get the permit and then we'd go from there. But we're not proposing selling alcohol or High Point beer at all at the location. The indoor arena, I just wanted to show you. The top picture to the right kind of shows you our 2 concessions area. We have a micro market there and a beverage station. The one to the left is just more merchandise, but this could be a 363-day-a-year center. We have 2 full concession areas. Again, the micro market, the beverage station. We can do private parties in there, trade shows. We've even worked with Broadway Media to talk about maybe some concerts that might be in there as well. So this kind of shows you the footprint. What we did is we shortened one of the indoor soccer fields so that we have this concession area that's completely enclosed so we can use it year round. As far as the Monarch Stadium, again, this is the blueprint down below. It shows our 2 concession areas, but it's really the northwest and the southwest locations that will have more of an open, fair kind of concession stand area. So we have 2 stadium concessions, 4 mobile concessions, 2 catering trailers, 4 mobile beer carts, and then game day barbecue, tailgate, premium, and stadium. Now you want to know, it's not on here, this is not like RSL. This isn't 20 to 22,000 fans. We can seat about 5,200.
How many do you get out for the Monarch games? Because you're having them at the RSL Stadium. How many do you get out to the Monarch?
Anywhere from 2,500 to 5,000. I do want to note that we took the Shield this year. We had the best record in the USL, so we're coming from having won the regular season championship. So we're bringing a championship trophy with us to start out this new stadium, and I believe it's March is the first game.
Let me just ask you real quick, if I may. I don't mean to interrupt. But you talked about, we have the charter school there. Is it within Utah statute in terms of proximity to schools and alcohol? Because there is a distance issue.
Correct. No, there is, and there's a direct line, and then there's a pedestrian access there. That is the issue with the stadium, for sure. When we designed this, this is part of the legacy project for Deloy Hansen. This is a dormitory where we house 50 of our academy students, and this is where the Monarchs and RSL will train year-round. And not only that, when we have Real Madrid or some of these opposing teams that come to the United States, they'll come to our facility and use that. So when we did the STEM school, it was to take care of the need to be able to educate those students. The stadium really isn't going to be the operating arm of this entity like the indoor arena will because of our weather and our seasons. And so a special permit is similar to the process that if you already have a liquor license, then you're allowed up to 90 events that you can do a special permit with, which with dispensing 3.2 alcohol. And so again, we could look at changing the entrances. The southeast entrance is really close to the school, too close to the school. And we have one concession area there. So there's discussions, and this is part of this process, when we take the liquor license either tomorrow or Friday to get it on the docket for the UDABC to approve, this is where the conversation will take place. And that's when they'll let us know what we can or cannot do. We feel that, I think I state this in just a second, so I'll wait for that. But again, we're not going to serve any alcohol for youth events. We are serious about alcohol safety. We understand our responsibility to the fans and the community. We will have dedicated staff, so I've talked with Craig Barton, our VP of Operations, and we'll be checking for transferring, checking IDs. Transferring is when somebody goes, buys a drink for somebody else and hands it off. And then checking IDs and monitoring fan behavior. I've also, with Wasatch Restaurant Group, I've actually brought on a training manager, and I'm putting him through the classes with the UDABC to train all of our staff on dispensing, on selling alcohol, so we're ahead of the game on that.
Can I just ask you too, I know with like baseball, it seemed to be like after the 7th inning, they don't sell.
Right.
Do you have a time constraint in terms of when you don't sell to ensure safety on the road?
It's about the 55th minute to the 60th minute of a game that all the concessions pretty much shut down. It's the beauty of soccer. If you get a sell before the game, their half times are so short. If you've ever been to an RSL game, the lines just line up, and I'm working on that one right now as far as expediting that. But really, it's kind of a 2-beer, maybe a 3-beer type experience. But with this group, I think we have an awesome opportunity. I'm from Alpine, and so I'm from Utah County, and I think that this is going to be a great addition to really have a family opportunity to be a part of something that's major, but not have to pay the same amount that you would for the Jazz or for even RSL. So I think the alcohol is going to be a part, but I would say that in the concession world, it's going to be about 10% of our total concession revenue. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
And just to kind of finish up here too, just in closing, we are committed to doing our part to provide a responsible fan experience. An experience that provides the freedom for those that want alcohol, but does not distract from the experience of our professional and league teams. We have proven track record with our Real Salt Lake team. We look forward to working with the City of Harriman today, tomorrow, and in the future. So at that, I mean, what questions can I do to answer for you as far as proximity or anything else? I'm open.
And you obviously had to adjust your proximity based on last session's change. Do you want to address what those, the direct line and pedestrian access, those changed with the last session, just for information's sake?
Okay, so I hope that I do it clearly. I don't know if I've got all the, I walked with them, but I know, for example, our southwest, I want to make sure I'm answering the right question.
Yeah, it's southwest is closest to the school. I think.
Southeast is the closest to the school. Yeah, because it's kind of, well, it depends on how you look at the stadium, but that's what we call it, southeast. So it's the one that's closest to the Mountain View corridor, and then closest to Lehigh.
I'm looking from the stadium perspective.
Yeah, so the stadium, right there, our entrance is within, when we walked it and measured it, I believed it was less, well, it actually goes by property line. So the property line of the school, because it's attached to the whole facility, butts up right next. There is no easement, there is no space between the two. So in the current legislative changes that they made with the liquor laws, they took a lot of the variance aspect away from the control from the UDABC to make concessions to do this. Now, there are some flaws with that law, and I can't speak to that, but I know that there are some holes that are gonna have to be filled. So with that, that's what I asked a lot of questions, and it came down to the special permit and what we could do or what we could not do. So for example, a radio station can go get a liquor license to be able to dispense at a concert. But they don't actually have a license, they just go get a single, it actually will cost us more money to do the special permit, but with that come more stringent rules to where there will be an area where we kind of service the beer on the northwest side of the building, not by the entrance concession stands, so that people can have that, and whether they go, and that's where the state will come and let us say whether we have to have wristbands or if we have to have extra staffing to kind of check on things. We even looked at if we moved the entrance to the southwest, closer to Harriman. Well, actually, you're in Harriman already, excuse me about that. But we looked at that, and it still wasn't quite there. And so Deloy Hansen and I were actually at UDABC today doing some fingerprinting, and we were talking with the people there. We've even discussed maybe even pushing the entrance. If we push the entrance all the way to the northwest side, then we'd easily be within distance. So it's kind of, in order to get to that process, to get that defined with them, we have all the liquor, all we need is the local consent so that we can then submit it to the state, and then we can start going through that process to find out what the solution can be.
Okay,
Did that
thank
answer
you.
your question?
That's helpful, thank you.
And that clarifies the question I was gonna have for you, is just to clarify that this is just local consent, saying it's okay, we're okay with you applying for that permit, and then you have to jump through all their hoops, and they have to deem whether you're within whatever distances.
In Salt Lake City, for example, we did one for a restaurant the other day, and there's no, I mean, it's just somebody at the office signs for this. But I mean, I'm glad I got to come to the meeting today. Enjoy all
I'm
that.
sure.
Yeah. Any other questions I can answer for you, though?
Thank you so much. I appreciate your patience coming out tonight. I think we're, like I said, we talked about this in our work meeting, so I am prepared for a motion if someone would like to entertain that.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number R40-2017, granting local consent for an on-premises beer recreational liquor license with respect to the RSL Training Academy and Stadium.
Second.
Okay, motion a second. Any further discussion? See none, we'll call for the vote. Nicole?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Corley?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes, that motion carries. Our final item tonight, 6.13, discussion consideration of ordinance declaring approximately 1.09 acres of real property located at or near 12950 South Rosecrest Road, 5600 West, as surplus, establishing a minimum bid and establishing a method to determine the highest and best economic return to the city.
Where's the appraiser?
What's that?
He or she needs to answer for themselves.
All right, so we're back with this one. We did a lot of homework. We actually had the property reappraised. Let's see, I got two clickers here.
I'll do it here.
Okay. So back to this location. It's a wedge piece of property, about 610 feet of frontage along 5600 West, 125 feet of frontage on 12900 South, total of 1.09 acres. There's a water line that runs along the west side of the property, and the little blue that's slid up is actually, that's the setbacks shown on there. So what it equates to is about a 90-foot deep piece of property at the thickest point that's about 420 feet long that's usable. I took several other businesses around the city and kind of drew the shape in and tried to fit it on there, and the parking lot makes it very unusable. So what I see it being would possibly be some type of like coffee drive-through shop or something if they were going to put anything on there, because there's just not enough depth to get parking for any type of use on a typical size building. So we had the appraisal redone. The original appraisal did not include the utilities and the encumbrances on there. So the new appraisal came back at $190,000. The odd shape makes it very difficult to develop. The effective buildable area is 26,700 feet, but with the wedge at the bottom, it makes it difficult. With the church coming in to the west, they would have two approaches for the church, like their typical design, which could limit access off of 12900 South. So that would result in just having one access off of 5600 West, because you got the access to the east from the townhomes. So this property will probably be limited to only having one access as well. The city doesn't need these, disappeared, there we go. City doesn't need these parcels for future infrastructure improvements. And the minimum bid is where we could start, And then if it's worth 190, it would work up to that. It is zoned right now as A1, but on the general plan it's shown as commercial. So that's why there are the larger setbacks, the 20 feet setbacks along the roads. So recommendation is that it's declared as surplus property with a minimum bid starting at 150, and then it could work up to 190 if the bids go that high. Is there any? I can answer any questions if you still have any more.
I had a quick question. I probably interrupted you. Go ahead, Corey.
Well, just a clarification, you had said that if they do get this additional these two parcels, then they would only have one exit onto 56 West. Did I understand that?
If the church comes in first and these parcels are left, then their access would make it so the spacing wouldn't work off 12900 South. And then if you look at the photo, there's an access coming from the townhomes to the east, down at the south end of the property. The offset intersection spacing would make it so that only one access would be allowed per our standard along 5600 West.
And none on 129.
And none on 129. Mm-hmm. So that'd be one access total for the two parcels. I guess you could, yeah, you'd have to do a shared access for the two parcels if they went separately.
Like I had a question on, you'd start a minimum value. The resolution says, be it further ordained that the council finds the reasonable value of the property is more than 250,000. Is that a typo? Should that be 190 in there?
That must be a typo. It might be a leftover from the original
The
resolution.
leftover from the original, I think. I didn't look at that, so.
So we need to change that. And then it's got up now, therefore be it ordained, and there's a blank
So it's not a significant parcel.
by the council that the property be declared surplus, that the minimum bid for the property shall be blank. What is that? Is that gonna be 190?
Whatever this body decides at this point. I left that blank in case it was not 150 and you made a different decision.
So the church has told us that for 150, they would buy the parcel. If we did more, they wouldn't. So if the risk is that we end up owning this property for a long time.
Well, so the church is not gonna be the only buyer. If you're gonna use this process, you have to put it out to public bid.
No, we know that, but what we're saying is we know one bidder will bid at least 150.
So we ought to have in the resolution 150.
That's what we're recommending. Then we know we have one buyer.
So we put the 150 there and then change that to 190 is the reasonable value.
That'd be a good recommendation.
And then last time we met, we discussed the issue of it being currently zoned A1 and whether or not there would be the ability to combine the parcels and then put a home on it. Was there any research done on that, if that's a real risk?
Well, I think like Blake said, you know, there is, 90 feet they have available.
Mm-hmm.
They have to have a 100-foot wide lot in A1, which they would have, and they'd have 90 feet of buildable area outside of the utility easement, so.
Was the appraisal indicative of the utility easement being a burden to be able to construct a residential unit? Because before we had talked about that they'd have to move the home around to lay it out just right, but I think what we were looking for last time was, can we point to something in the appraisal to discourage people from trying to buy it for that purpose and say, you really don't want this parcel because of this utility easement?
So I think in our current general plan, we show it as commercial. So if somebody came in, they would have to propose a use that's compatible with our general plan. And so I think if they were to come in with a subdivision or something to make a one-lot home there, we would say that's not compatible. And I think we could.
Even though the zoning is.
The zoning's there, but you still are required to do a
subdivision because it's not a legal lot right now.
Okay, so
And
the
when they come in
subdivision
with-
would catch it. Okay.
Yeah, so that's where we'd catch them on the subdivision.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm ready for a motion. This item.
I will motion to approve Ordinance 2017-53, declaring approximately 1.09 acres of real property located at or near 12950 South Rosecrest Road as surplus, establishing a minimum bid and establishing a method to determine the highest and best economic return to the city with the following modifications to the ordinance. On the paragraph that states, be it further ordained that the council finds that the reasonable value of the property is
190.
It is 150,000.
That,
What do
you
you want,
won't
more
put
or
it-
less?
That's 190 there.
190.
190.
Okay.
Or
Is
less than 250, you could say.
okay. Is less than 250,000 and therefore not a significant parcel of real property, etc. And then for the blank, the minimum bid for the property shall be $150,000.
Second, we got a motion and a second. Let's call for the vote. Jared?
Yes.
Corley?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. That motion carries. Okay, just want to remind everyone the calendar, next Planning Commission meeting is next week from this Thursday on the 16th. And then we have the Board of Canvassers meeting on the 21st. That meeting will be held in this building at 6 p.m. Future events, November 27th will be the Night of Lights and a holiday sing-along at the Crane Park at 4 p.m. So that being said, I will accept a motion to conclude our city council meeting and reconvene to our work meeting.
So moved.
Second. Okay. All in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. Thanks everyone for coming.